Welcome to Fierce Conversations with Toby, the podcast where we dive deep into the art of overcoming. Here we share powerful stories that ignite healing and inspire profound transformations in your own journey. I'm Toby Dorr, and together we'll explore the resilience, courage, and fierce determination that turn life's challenges into stepping stones for growth. Let's begin this transformative journey together. Hi, this is Toby again, and I'm so excited for my guest today, Candace Newman. I met Candace through my publisher, but Candace has a book that she's published. She's also an artist, and she has these delightful little cards that she sends out. She's just a person who spreads love and light through the world. And so I'm really excited to have you on. Welcome, Candace.
Oh, thanks, Toby. I'm really happy to be with you because I think you are just terrific.
I think we kind of found kindred souls here.
Yes, we
We've
did.
got so many things in common. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
So before we get started, this is probably going to be a question that really relates to you, maybe more so than some of my other guests. But I always like to ask everybody what their favorite color is and what it says about them.
Yeah. Huh. Well, of course, I love the color wheel like you do.
Yes.
I'd have to say right now, and there has been a stream of it through my life, it's turquoise.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. When I was a little girl, I had this beautiful turquoise shirtwaist dress. Remember those?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And then when I went out west to the Native American Indians, I saw these turquoise stones and lived in
Mm-hmm.
Colorado for a while. And then, of course, turquoise is in a lot of the Egyptian jewelry, the Eye of Horus. And I just love turquoise, and it's come in really strong since I had this third burnout. And
Mm-hmm.
because cobalt blue has always been with me too. But for me, I think turquoise stands for um, truth. I think it calls for you walking your truth and speaking your truth. And I think that that is a really solid, beautiful thing to think about. And I think that now that I'm saying this out loud, that's been a really call for me that even let me survive my third burnout.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like, the ways of the world don't work for you. You've tried it in two other careers.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do it your way and honor who you are. And I think honoring who we are is what it's all about. And turquoise, I don't know, it just speaks to me big time. It's like I just love it.
I think that's a beautiful answer. I love it too. And the Native Americans, they make such beautiful jewelry and beadwork, and it's just inspiring, I think, to
Yeah,
go
I do too. I do
and look
too.
at some of their stuff. So tell us about a crossroads in your life that really propelled you in a different direction.
Okay. I've had three burnouts. They each propel me in a different direction, but I think the one that was huge in terms of really changing what had been going on for 23 years of my life was ending my first marriage.
Mhm.
And that happened as part of my second burnout, but episodes in the first burnout kind of led to that. And
Mhm.
it was a whole lot of, we don't get to handle one difficulty at a time. It usually comes in, well, here's another one, here's another one.
Yes, yes, isn't that the truth? They stack themselves up.
Yeah, they do. So that's kind of what happened there. But I'd have to say, ending my 23-year marriage, because we
Mhm.
were college sweethearts. He was a tennis pro, and I joined him, and we had a tennis life together. And all tennis pros dream about. We had a tennis complex at a nice club, and we ran the whole thing. I did the pro shop and all kinds of things. But tennis pros, I found out, feel like they need to own their own tennis club once the board of directors start
Oh,
telling you what to do. And
mhm,
all I could see was all the work to be done.
mhm,
And all he could see was, oh, the glory will own our own club. So,
mhm.
anyway, as things would have it, I was at a buying show in Miami, and sitting next to me were these two women at a booth buying stuff. and they said that their husbands were doctors. They owned a club in Tampa, and it was for sale. And I thought, oh man, I don't know about this. So, long story short, we sold our house, we bought the club, went in sink, line, and sink. What is that saying? Sink, line,
Hook, line, and sinker. That's
hook,
what
line.
yeah.
I am notorious for I provide a lot of humor for my family. Hook, line, and sinker. And things were just crazy. We were living out of suitcase. We sold the house. We were living out of suitcases and boxes up in Tampa. We had a sinkhole in the parking lot. So there were a lot of difficulties, and we did not have a big reserve. But
Mm-hmm.
we doubled the membership at the club. It was in an RV. Yeah, the office was in a trailer.
Mm-hmm.
We designed a clubhouse. It was almost built when we had to leave. And we were running Michelob Lights and state sanctioned tournaments. And he comes to me one day and he said, this isn't going to work. We're going to have to leave. And I went, well, what do you mean? This is a dream. Even though I'm only getting 3 hours of sleep at night
Yes. Uh-huh.
for
You
13 months,
you
which
bought
really,
into the dream. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And I thought, well, we used to buy little houses and fix them up. Let's buy tennis clubs and fix them up. Well, I
Oh.
talked to this man, this wonderful man. He's kind of a head of club owners in the country. And I called him. I said, Dale, he thinks we should leave. And he said, honey, he said, you shouldn't put another dime in that place. You two have done more than anybody I can ever imagine. It's just not going to work. So we walked away from it and lost everything we had earned in the first 9 years of our marriage in the
Wow.
10th. And all I wanted to do was move to Hawaii and be a waitress. Because I've been handling 3 checkbooks,
Mm-hmm.
and payroll and federal taxes and all those things are not really my greatest forte. But
Mm-hmm.
you learn what you do and you
Yes.
master it. And but no, we had 4 rental properties down in Naples, and he said, "Well, we got to go down there and handle these things, and let's see what it's like." Well, we had to give away those properties so we didn't have to declare bankruptcy. And we were living again in boxes and things in 2 different places. And then he got offered a great job at a pro club there. And Toby, I couldn't touch a tennis racket again. I couldn't play
Mm-hmm.
tennis. I was gone, just gone,
Mm-hmm.
and didn't know what I was going to do. And it was a horrible burnout. I remember one night getting up in the middle of the night. We were living in a friend's home that had all their stuff in it. We were living out of our laundry bags. He was bartering tennis lessons for it.
Wow.
And I got up and I was just like so wasted. I didn't know what burnouts were and I didn't know what anxiety attacks were. And then later books were coming out on burnout. And I said, well, I
Yes.
could have written this book. I got everything on the checklist. My
Mm-hmm.
other 2 burnouts taught me about anxiety attacks, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really know what all that was. But one time I got up in the middle of the night and I'm talking to God and I said, God, I'm just out. I don't have it for anything. And I started crying and I said, but you know what? I am not letting go of your hand. So
Mm-hmm.
just keep walking me through this. And I ended up going in the real estate business because I love real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And a man and his wife and son, who are family to me, had a really small, private, top notch firm. And they said, you need to come here and work with us. It would be great. And that was, I mean, the last thing I needed going from tennis pro club owner to real estate salesperson when my self esteem was already giving me, I'd be walking around thinking, I'm going to throw up, or I'm going to faint or something.
Uh-huh.
But I got into that, and I was reading all these books now about how to master real estate, and I
Mm-hmm.
read one of them, and I went, if this is what I have to do, I'm not doing it that way. Which was always about trying to convince the person to buy
Yes.
what you think's right for
Mm-hmm.
them. I said,
Right.
I'm not doing that. I said, okay, God, I'll give this 3 years. And if
Mm-hmm.
I can make it that long, then maybe I'll be all right. And I ended up being a top salesperson and on the board of directors and even executive vice president. But all the pain I've been carrying from the tennis club, we didn't know how to process that. We never got therapy help. We didn't think about it.
Ah. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know how to process through a burnout other than just what I was doing. And I went in such a sedentary life that I joined a health club and started working out like crazy and injured myself a few times. And that created a big health issue I had. And so then I had to leave that position in real estate. And I'd been in 6 years of pain from a
Mm,
nerve and a pelvic torque and a cyst on an ovary. And finally that ruptured, and that was a big surgery. And
mhm,
so then I had to leave that, and then I didn't know what I was going to do next. But that's at a time where my mom and dad moved to Naples with dad's Alzheimer's, and I was the caregiver. Um, the divorce happened. The I was there was a whole bunch of things there that happened at once. Um, but it was just my health, my mom and dad, and I was just trying to stay afloat. I had a lot of thyroid problems and things.
mhm, mhm. Do
So
you think that maybe God was saying, I've been trying to tell you you needed a change, and if you aren't going to listen, I'm just going to send you this ruptured cyst because that'll get your attention. You won't be able to ignore that.
absolutely, and I was in a cabin with no phone in North Carolina. I mean, how? So then
Yeah.
I'm lying on the floor, and I'm saying,
Uh-huh.
I've got this volcano thing going on. I don't know what's happened. I said, God, here I am. but no doubt, one thing about all three of these burnouts, and the one that happened uh, 8 years ago when I was 68 was the worst.
Mhm.
But every single one of them was definitely like a script that was written for my life to keep, because everything I did, I loved it and I could care for
Mhm.
people and love them, but it wasn't what I was here to do. I
Yes.
was buying into somebody else's dream in lots of
Mhm.
situations, and oh, well, I can do that. And I learned just because we can do something and do it well does not mean we're supposed to do it.
That's right. And I do think that, we all have that something that we can bring to the world that's unique for us, that we can bring in a different way. And I think we often get derailed by other people's dreams of what success looks like. And so, oh, I should take this corporate job, I should travel on the road a lot for work. I should do these things that really aren't what I'm here to do, but you get distracted by the world and by what society thinks. And sometimes it takes a ruptured cyst or a huge fall to get your attention and make you go, wait a minute, I've got to really do something different.
Yeah, I think so too. I call it if we don't pay attention, or even if we are paying attention but we don't take action,
Hmm.
then I think our soul hits us with a two by four that says,
I
hey.
think so too.
So then I was praying, okay, God, please, because I would always get dreams that were indicative to me of the situations I was in. And,
Hmm.
and, but I just didn't feel like I could leave that,
Hmm.
and so I used to have this little prayer with God about, he came to me in my life at age 7 when I was unconscious, but I I felt like, God, just give it to me in my dreams now. Let's not have me hit by any more two by fours. Let's have one more to go. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yes. I
But
can so.
what's yeah,
I've had people ask me, did you pray about the prison escape before you did it? And my answer always is yes. And every time I felt like I got this push in that direction. Now I realize, God didn't want me to break John Maynard out of prison, but God knew I was dead set on doing it. And He was going to keep His hand on me through it so that I could come out on the other side and do something good with that.
that's really, I'm with you on that completely. I have felt like God never left me. And
Mm-hmm.
that if I have a dry spell, it's me that's let go,
Yeah.
and then I'm just always praying about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that. I'm making a note of that. That's excellent. So I often ask people, was there a time you ever felt imprisoned and what did you do to free yourself? I feel like we've kind of touched on that already, but I find that escaping the prisons that we build ourselves are they're so much more confining than actually being in prison behind bars.
Yes, yes. And I do think, I'm glad you brought that one up for us to share and talk about, because I do think that we create our own prisons and
Yes.
and feel kind of stuck, and there's a lot of struggle, push pull going on. My because I felt like I was in one each time that was overwhelming, and it was more than I could handle, and there was no way out. But my first burnout happened in my 30s, and my second one happened in my late 40s, and my third one happened when I was 67. And that was the worst one. And I think part of going through all that at 67 made it tougher physically to get restored. And it
Mm.
was also tougher for me because when I left the real estate business and trying to get my health back after 15 doctors and a couple surgeries, I went, okay. I went to massage school to learn anatomy and physiology and try to
Oh.
understand myself. But it's when I went to an Englishman that did aromatherapy massage, and I had never heard of aromatherapy. This was in
Mhm.
1988, or essential oils. And I'm lying on the table, and he's working on me. And I've always been sensitive to perfume and smells. And all of a sudden, there's this aroma that's just like, now I call it the silent language of our soul. And I was lying there, and all of a sudden I thought, I'm not in any pain right now. I don't want to move. So I
Mhm.
went up to the beach that night, and I sat there in Naples, and I was talking to God, and I said, and the tears just streamed down my face. I said, God, I feel like the duck that got to water. I don't know what this is, but I know it. And
Mhm.
the oils are like the love I felt just flowing through my bloodstream when I was little. So I
Mhm.
had to go study that. And
Mhm.
and then when I was sitting one night healing at the Healing Prayer Duck Pond of Naples Hospital, in comes the voice, and it says, the name of your work is Touch with Oils. You're
Oh.
going to teach reverent touch and sacred oils. And I'm
Mhm.
sitting there going, leave me alone. I'm trying to make it to lunch. But anyway, that carried on, and that was 30 years ago, 33, 2 or 3 now.
Mhm.
And I knew there was something special to those 3 words.
Mhm.
But it was in around somewhere around 2008 or 10. I was listening to a colleague who was expert of biblical oils and things, and
Mhm.
she said in Hebrew one of the definitions for um, anoint is touch with oils. And I just sat there with
Really?
chills and tears coming down, because I knew that people were touched with oils if they just walked in our shop, or if they were just breathing, or they have so many different properties. But what happened with my third burnout is I had a little laboratory, and I just, we all have gifts, and I had a gift of, I had great education, England and Purdue and doctors and things, but I knew the oils and how to blend them. And after all those years in my lab pouring straight oils, and then letting go of the treatments I was developing to run the
Mhm.
business, I was wearing myself out. And when we moved from Florida, we moved to Colorado for 7 years to get our mountain fix. And then we moved back to Florida, and we decided at that point we needed to sell off the oil part and let me just do my principles, theories, and things.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the move from Colorado to here was really tough. I mean, we lived in an RV for a year, still running the business, the two of us, a small RV with our dog. My father-in-law had a couple-year tough passing in Texas. My system was so exhausted, and I was so overwhelmed with smell that it would start my heart racing,
Mhm.
and my eyes burning, and my stomach crazy. And I we sold the business, and I couldn't even keep staying there to help the person that bought the business. They went and got great education too.
Uh-huh.
But I had a burnout it was so scary, Toby. I thought I was done.
Mhm.
I always think that we have 3 strong legs, our body, our mind, and our spirit. And if one of them goes down or two of them goes down, there's still a leg to pull you back.
Hmm.
I think happened with my first two burnouts. But this third one, it turned into more of like a nervous collapse,
Oh, wow.
and my muscles had turned to mush,
Hmm.
and my insides were tingling. My connective tissue was kind of popping. I was having dreams of fire.
Wow.
And one night I woke up and I couldn't think at all. And again I was lying on the floor and said, God, I think that I don't know how I can come out of this, because
Hmm.
I don't have anything to help me. I couldn't even walk three houses down the street, and I've had kind of a semi athletic life.
Hmm.
But
Right.
everything was just gone, and that's when I felt the most imprisoned I was, because I didn't have the vitality or the strength
Hmm.
in anything that could bring me back. And I got a lot of help for the first time in my life. I just had to get some big medicine. I thought, I'm not going to make it if I don't
Hmm.
get something to take care of these nerves and that were just popping. One night I was dreaming I was sitting at a grand piano playing, and I smelled smoke, and all of a sudden the strings in the piano were popping, and it was like,
Oh,
there's no music left in you. It's just done.
wow.
So that was huge. However, that is when, because when I said to God, if I'm done, here I am. But
Hmm.
I'm going to do everything I've been studying in my life. I can't let go of your hand. And if you want to bring me back, I was even in a place where I said, if it's my time, here I am. I understand.
Hmm.
If it isn't, I'll write that book. So I
Oh,
wrote my book
yes.
when I
Yes.
was 68 and 69, published it
Mhm.
in 70. And the book and my art were two major healing things for
Mhm.
me. And they were quiet and solitude times. I couldn't handle any noise, any smells. I couldn't handle much of anything, and I couldn't exercise. But the other thing that's really crucial in my life is nature.
Yeah,
That's where I always,
nature is healing, I think.
and trees, and
Mhm.
just so uh, so that was. But I've been coming out of that, and I realized that I can do things my little way, if that's it. And like the few little things I've been doing, I it's working out all right. And I have two puppies and a wonderful husband, like you do.
Yes, having a wonderful husband is so beneficial, and I tell you know, Chris and I are so connected spiritually, and that's just so beautiful and powerful.
Yeah, yeah. John and I too. He
Mhm.
says we're kind of the unlikely alliance, because he's from Texas and in all of that, and
Uh-huh.
and uh, and in some ways we're kind of opposites, but we're also very much alike, and
Mhm.
spiritually and soulfully we're very connected.
Yes,
I could
yes.
see that when I was watching your talk with
Oh,
Chris.
the
It was so
podcast with
cute.
Chris.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's a
yes.
great one.
I think Chris and I are gonna start a podcast of our own, so
Oh,
I think
good.
it's gonna be fun. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
just
Oh,
talking about life. So, I love that.
yeah.
Um, so your book, we mentioned your book. I do have a copy of it here.
Oh, good, good.
Your Inner River of Peace, and it's a pretty substantial book. It's got quite a bit in it. And what I really like, I was looking through this in the back. You also have some information here about different essential oils and things, which I think is really helpful. So
Yes, yes.
you kind of have everything wrapped up in this book.
Well,
Tell us a little bit about the book, the premise of the book.
okay. The I have received voice messages my whole life, and I think it's because when I was 7, I had mumps encephalitis, pancreatitis, and I was unconscious in Children's Hospital in Washington. And since then, I have had this voice. It's always preceded by this like moment of no time. It's a peace, or a wave of peace that kind of takes me over, and it causes me to pause. And then
Mhm.
the voice comes in, and then I can hold, or I should say I can, that peace holds there for me. And it's like a moment in time. You know, it's happened on the top of mountains in Machu Picchu, but it's happened on the bus in San Francisco. So it's not,
Oh,
you don't have to be in a prayer thing, it'll come in.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
I've known through my life they were simple words. They only contain wisdom and peace. And they weren't just for me, that I was really to share those with others.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so when I wanted to write this book, I first I thought it was going to be 52 messages for the week and weeks in the year, and then I thought it was going to be 12 for the months. And
Hmm.
as I'm writing it, I get on message number 7, and the voice comes in and says, "Now we're only doing 10." And I went, "Well, okay." But what's interesting is when we were talking about color, this symbol, I didn't decide to make a symbol. It showed up
Hmm.
for my 10 principles and 10 motions of stillness in my Touch with Oils work. But as I was writing these messages and ended up with 10, all of a sudden I saw this symbol. I mean, it was like brought up to another level with the true 3 primary colors, 3 secondary colors, and 6 tertiary colors. And each
Hmm.
one of the symbols, each one of the messages of love fits in one of those symbols. So as you work through them, it completes the symbol and it goes into the white light and open
Hmm.
still space in the center. So that was happening. And at first, I thought, I wanted to definitely share with people what was going on in my life when the message came in. And that was making me feel very vulnerable. My brother didn't know I heard voices and all these things were happening. And so when I got about halfway through it, and I really honor Michelle Van de Pas for
Hmm.
helping me, I
Yeah.
would have gotten this book written without her. Um, and I lost my train of thought there. What was I?
You were talking about these messages came in and your brother didn't even know you heard them and
Right. And I felt like I should be sharing my story. And one time in the middle of it, I went, "Oh, I don't know if I want to do this, making me feel way too vulnerable."
yes.
When I went to bed that night, I woke up the next morning and I'm having my quiet time, and in comes the voice. And it says, "You must tell your story. We'll
Hmm.
protect you." And I went, "Okay."
You know, we as human beings, I think, are just wired for story. I mean, way back before we could write, humans would sit around in the evening, I think, and tell stories. And
Yeah.
that's how they learned where the best fishing was, where the best hunting was. Um, so I think human beings, we crave story. And every one of us has a story to tell.
Yes,
And
we do.
if we don't tell it, the person that our story could have reached goes without the message they needed to hear.
Right,
You
right.
know, so many people, like, I tell my story about being in prison and rebuilding my life afterwards. There's a million people who've been in prison and rebuilt their life. But the story that I tell is just enough different from every other story about the same topic that
Yeah.
my story will reach someone that the next story would not. So
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think it's so important to encourage everyone to tell their story.
I do too. I do too. And while I was writing it, I knew I had to tell my story, but then I knew that I wanted to help other people create their own inner river of peace.
Mhm.
If they know they have it, let's make it stronger.
Yeah,
Let's make it your
yeah.
love affair with it. And so what I ended up doing, I've been a teacher all my life of whatever thing I
Mhm.
was doing. And I wanted to put in things that help people. Like I put the message there on the little parched scroll looking paper, and I tell my story. And then I would talk about, after the personal story, each of the 10 message chapters follow the same format. Here's
Mhm.
the message, here's the story. And then I would talk about the interpretation of it. Because every word, and I know you love words, every
Yeah.
word in the message means something different to somebody.
Yes.
So, and I was asking people to trigger on what is these words. Like, for example, the first one said, "What are you fretting about? Don't you remember? All you agreed to do was show up and hold a vision. We can do the rest through you." So then for that interpretation, I was asking, well, what does show up mean? it could be physically, but it could be in a prayer. It could be
Mhm.
mental thoughts. And then what does vision mean? So I have a little section on interpreting for yourself
Mhm.
individual words in it. And then I went into ideas and action. Here are things you can do to make the message yours. And at the end of each chapter of messages, I put in contemplative moments to move us into a place of stillness.
Mhm.
And there are four reviews. After we go through the first three, we go into review. And I put one of my poems in each of the reviews.
I love that. I
Four
just love
poems
that.
in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But one of the prayers I have in the contemplative moments is a prayer I've had a long time, and it's a quick 3-step prayer. I've always been interested in the number 3 and the power of the equilateral, and then even the golden mean triangle. But the 3-step prayer, it came into me when I'd moved my Touch with Oils business from my home into this little shop in Naples. And I was
Mhm.
having an opening little ceremony with a few people. And I just went into this prayer with frankincense, rose, and lavender, and in a little dish. But the prayer was, and I still say it a lot, is, "Dear God, please increase my awareness to hear your guidance,
Mhm.
and please give me the courage to follow the guidance when I get it. And when I get the guidance and I'm following the courage to do it, let me do it with a faith that leaves no room for doubts, the faith that moves mountains." And that has been so important to me, because I think lots of times as we get our mind and our heart and our soul working together, we
Mhm.
realize there's a lot more than just the mind making decisions, when it really wasn't.
Mhm.
That's not its greatest asset. It's so good at imagination, and I like little children.
Yes.
And the heart is so full of unbelievable wisdom and love, and it wants to be married to the mind. And then the soul is, it wants to be still. It wants to, it wants you to be still with it and pause. And so those contemplative moments are there. And then, which was not planned in the book, I got that far along and decided, well, I have to do a chapter on the power of the senses, the 5
Oh.
senses,
Mhm.
plus 2 I stuck in there, and to help us use the senses with the message. Like for example, maybe we're working on message 2. Whenever you think you're limited, look at the sky. That is such a simple thing.
Yes.
And I used to climb up on the roof. I had Home Depot deliver a ladder one day. And I climbed up on the roof at the end of the day, and I'd lie there at this little tiny pitch in the roof, which was a perfect therapeutic slant board. And I'd lie there and, oh, I would just feel the peace of God, looking
Mhm.
at the sky. And then came that message.
Yes.
So I think that to bring our senses in, and maybe if you absolutely love peppermint, you
Mhm.
might put peppermint in a cotton ball and put it in your pocket and relate that to one of the messages. I put ideas in there for that.
Mhm.
And so after I did Power of the Senses to help people see more options to create their own situation, then I did a chapter on essential oils as soulful elements, and that was my favorite writing about oils,
Mhm.
because
Yes,
I love
I
that.
just love it. I just love it.
Hmm.
So, and I think I've heard somewhere that smell is one of our most powerful senses, and it's like in the root of our brain. And when you smell something, it brings back memories.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. It's the
just,
only one of our 5 senses that's completely developed at birth. And that's
ah,
how the baby finds the mother finds the baby.
uh-huh.
and
Mm-hmm.
and it is connected. It goes. There is no blood brain barrier between our olfactory nerve and the part of the brain it goes into, which is
Ah,
the reptilian brain, the limbic system.
yes, yes,
So
yes.
um so
It's amazing how
yeah,
powerful scent is.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So
love that.
when I did all those chapters there, then I felt like I noticed that there were 4 themes that were developing, and I touch on them a little bit in the book. But they're very important to me, and they've been part of my life. I think they help us come out of tough times. And one of them is to realize that your heart and your mind can work together. They like to work together,
Mhm.
and to do things that help you strengthen that muscle. And we can do that by creating holy habits, which is just taking something that you love and doing it consciously. Like the first one that I like to talk about is my first motion of stillness, which is called a conscious sip. You know, but when you're going to have your first sip of coffee in the morning or any sip of anything, just take a breath,
Mhm.
take a sip, and pause. So
Mm.
that's the holy habit after the heart mind connection. And then number three is simple, stop, look, and listen once in a while.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
There's so much going on around us that's so beautiful,
yes,
and
it
we just
is.
rush through life and don't even pay attention to it.
Right. And that stop is not a like stop, it's like a
Mhm.
pause.
Yes.
And then the fourth one is just once in a while remember to be slow, still, and simple.
Mhm.
And what I've learned since I wrote the book is if you're doing one of those things, the other three are automatically activated, and it doesn't matter which one you
It's
do.
interesting. I have this little routine, which if you'd have told me I'd got to this point, I would have told you you're crazy. But outside my door, we have a concrete little uh, space, and there's a drain in that space. So it can be dampish there. It doesn't, it dries out, but it's dampish. Well, I've noticed this summer when I go outside in the evening, I have some slugs out there. And so I have started feeding them. And every night I go out and I watch them eat, and talk about slowing yourself down. If
Oh,
you sit there and watch slugs eat,
yeah.
it's something happens, and it's like the craziest thing, but I'm so in love with these slugs. And I mean, I even have little ceramic slugs on my
Oh,
desk.
oh.
I don't know what it is, but they're so slow and so still and so complete at the same time.
Yes, yes.
It's just mesmerizing to me.
Yeah. I love that. And those are things the soul loves. The
Mhm.
soul loves things that are experiences,
Yes.
give us a pause.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting because I watch the little lizards out on our patio.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, and
yes.
I
We've
just
had
sit
lizards
there
a
and watch
couple
them.
times.
And I
Mhm.
love to watch the sun dance through the leaves of trees. It's
Yes,
been something in my
yes.
whole life. I just
Mhm.
love to watch that. And Toby, I think that there is so much wisdom in nature.
Mhm.
And the primitive peoples of all time were very connected to nature. And we are destroying nature and building
Yes.
a lot of concrete. And
Mhm.
we think that we know better than nature and can build something better. Well,
Mhm.
take a look at that with tornadoes and hurricanes.
Mhm.
um,
Yes.
and
Well,
I think nature has always been um, my big part of getting over anything I've ever had to get over, and also another big part of giving me joy.
mhm. I love it too, and I live in Northern Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C., and somehow this area has become the data center capital of the world, and
Ah,
they are building data center after data center after data center after data center, and it is so upsetting because they send in crews and they just take out whole entire forests of trees, and you drive and you see them all stacked up at the side of the road waiting to be carted off. And it is, and that's what we've done because we have so much data that we need more data centers to hold all of our data. and
mhm.
and to do that we're cutting down trees, and it's like it just, it seems wrong
It
somehow.
does, and then we think about the trees give us oxygen.
Yes.
So, and we complain about the lack of oxygen, but
Hmm.
who's creating that? And
Yes.
throughout my life, I've needed to go have quiet time once in a while.
Hmm.
And some of the places I go are monasteries because they're so peaceful. And
Yes, I
um,
think that's beautiful.
all different religions. If it's an authentic
Right.
place, it's
Hmm.
beautiful.
Hmm.
And I love to go to the mountains and the beach whenever I can. But sometimes if I can't go away for 2 or 3 days, well, of course you could, but what I should say is it's not the best time or something.
Right.
I'll just take an afternoon off and go down and I'm a wanderer, wander
Mhm.
around town and just pause.
Yes. You
And
know what I do sometimes when I need a spiritual break? I did it last night. I go to the bookstore and I just walk through and read the titles and look at the covers and pick up the books and hold them. And I don't know, just being surrounded by all those books,
yeah, yeah.
it just
I
centers me.
Yeah, when I was in Naples, I'd go to Barnes& and Noble a lot,
Yes.
and here I go to the library a lot, and
Hmm.
actually my book, I did go away for a couple of weeks and just write, to get that written, but I go to the li I wrote some of it in the library too. I went to the
Hmm.
library yesterday afternoon for a while. I just love to be sitting there with the books, and there's a seat I
Yes.
can look out the window and look at the trees. This is kind of funny talking about books and looking out the window because I've realized a lot of things in the last 7 or 8 years coming out. I mean, I had to do some deep, deep
Hmm.
work on myself. And my sister is a prolific reader, and her room when we were little was full of Nancy Drew books and all
Yes.
these
Nancy
books.
Drew. I had them all.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
well, and then I thought I didn't ever have one book in my bedroom.
Wow.
Not one. I would the bedrooms are on the second floor, and there were like double windows, and then one
Hmm.
of those old radiators with a cover over it. And I would go over there and just stare out the window, or I'd arrange pretty things around in my room. But
Yes.
I basically was always gazing around, and that
Hmm.
we were in this little pie-shaped lot, so there are a lot of gardens behind us.
Hmm.
I'd watch the people work in their garden, and I'd look at the
Yes.
sky and the trees, and I thought, well, no wonder I get exhausted quickly walking around in what I call the nonsense of the world.
Right. So, who has been your most important mentor?
Yeah. Oh, um, you know, that's such an interesting question. The first time I was asked that was when I was in the real estate business, and I realized when I was listening to people's mentors that at that time my mentor had to be God and nature.
Hmm.
However, the person, no doubt, is my dad. I had a wonderful dad, and
Yeah,
and
dads are.
yeah, and I got to spend the last 10 or 11 years of his life because they lived up in Maryland there and
Mhm,
retired to Naples when dad's uh, Alzheimer's was kicking in.
mhm, mhm.
But my dad, he was just something. I'd come home every day from school, this happy little thing skipping around. And when he'd get off the bus from Washington and the end of the street, I'd go hauling down the street and he'd lift me up.
Oh,
And
yes.
then I used to come home every day from school and tell him I was going to be somebody different. Everything from private investigator to a translator in the UN to a social director on a cruise ship, whatever it was, he said, "Oh, honey, I know. Just give it your best. I know you'll be good at it." And with all the changes I went in my life, he always said, "Oh, honey, you can just do anything you set your mind to do."
Wow.
And he was such a, you know, I feel like my dad, and I had a very sweet mother. She always
Mm.
told me I needed to do art, and dad told me I needed to write. Isn't that interesting?
And now you're doing both. I
Finally,
think
in my
that's beautiful.
70s. Finally.
Uh-huh. Mhm. So, what is one question you wish I'd ask you? Is there something we've left out?
um, let's see. I think if it was like, what's just a simple thing when your life's so full and you're so down that you can't get up to do anything? um, I'd like to say that you can have three burnouts that were devastating and changed your living place, your work. Lots of things could happen. Um, but three burnouts does not mean you're out. And I'm here when I thought I was to tell you I'm
Mhm.
not.
Yeah.
And if you have a book in you and you need to wait till 70 to get it published, don't stop at 70, but
That's right.
you know,
That's right.
get it written.
Mhm.
And I think that you know, when people say, yeah, yeah, well, I hear all this stuff you're doing, and I can't do any of that,
Mhm.
then what I say is just stop with a conscious sip. Have you got a
Mhm.
drink there? Can we take a conscious sip
I
together?
do. I
Okay.
do. Here we go.
This is my first motion of stillness. If anybody
Okay.
out there is there, join us. And if you can pick a cup that you love, this is my
I
own.
think that's great. I've got a disposable one.
Good, good. Okay. So you can do this. I do this every morning with my cup of coffee.
Mhm.
I can't
Okay.
wait to take my first sip. It takes 15 seconds. The first thing we're going to do is breathe out. If you have a breathing method, do your count. If you don't, breathe out for 6. Just pause enough to know you paused. Then breathe in for 3. You're also getting aroma maybe. And then pause and breathe out for 6 again. And then you take your sip. So let's go. Let's breathe out for 6 into the cup. Pause. Breathe in the cup. Stay in the cup for 4. Pause. Stay in the cup. Breathe out for 6. Take your sip. And then think of something you're working on or something you love or just preciously love the stillness of silence.
Yes, that's beautiful.
It's
I
so
love that.
easy, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and I'll never drink the same way again. That's because everybody drinks something every day.
Well,
So
that's what I think.
I think if you want to do something new, you want to bring a new habit into your life, if you tie it to something you're already doing, like
Absolutely.
my eye doctor wanted me to put eye drops in every day, and I can never remember to do it. So I laid them on the kitchen, I mean, in the bathroom next to the toothpaste. And every time I brush my teeth, I put eye drops in. And
Yeah.
I can do that. But to
Yeah.
remember to do eye drops, I can't do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think by this first sip and tying just awareness and consciousness and stillness to your first sip of the day, it kind of maybe sets the stage for the rest of the day that you're going to be more aware.
Right. And the other thing I like about it, I don't remember when this came to me, but it was in these last 8 years, that we sip on stuff throughout the day. We can take a
Yes,
conscious sip at any time. You know,
that's
maybe
right.
we're out to lunch and we're drinking or we're halfway through our drink and we go, oh, you know what? I'm
Hmm.
going to take conscious sip. You can
Hmm.
take a conscious sip anytime, but it's a great
Yes.
way to start your
I
day.
love that. And I always have a drink sitting on my desk.
Yeah.
And I could see when I'm working on a project and I kind of get a little stuck and think, where am I going to take this next? Well, that's the time to pick up your drink and just be conscious and
Yeah. And
sip it.
call it a holy habit. You know,
Yes,
call it a holy
I
habit.
love that.
A holy habit is any habit you have, just do
Hmm.
it consciously.
Yes, I
And
love that.
like you're doing a holy habit with your eye drops in your eye to help
Yes,
your eye get better.
yes, I love that.
So that's my first motions of stillness. I have 10 motions
I
of
love
stillness.
that. I
So
love that.
so that's when I'm going to put a little video of that on my website.
I
So
think
when
that's a
people
great
want
idea.
to join me for one, we can all have one together.
Yes, I love that. I love that idea. That's awesome. So, is there a question you'd like to ask me?
Yeah, I'd like to ask you because uh, of what's happened to me, having been through everything you've been through, and I honor you so strongly about it. And I love your laugh and the way you are. And now you're into this whole arena of incredible things. Not only are they very creative, but obviously your heart and soul and your mind are all
Mhm.
in it. And
Yes.
and also you have the ability. I marvel at your tech ability in this time as well. So while you've been doing this part of it, have you discovered little parts of yourself that you might have known they were there, but you're really getting to honor them now and you love those parts of
Mhm.
yourself?
Yes, so the tech part of me has always been there. I've been
Oh,
the tech person. What
okay.
I'm finding though in this journey now is that there is an artist in there
Oh, I
inside the
love it.
tech person. And so, I love doing things creative. I love changing colors. I love, researching colors and where the color came from when it was first a pigment in a paint,
Yeah,
I'm just
amazing.
really into the artistic stuff now.
Yeah.
And I never did that before because, well, there was a time when I painted with watercolor just before the escape, but I didn't really let art in my life or anything fun because I was all about doing the job, getting it done, doing the business, being productive. And to me, art wasn't productive. And now I just have embraced it and love it. And it is productive
Hmm.
to be better at art.
Yeah, and it's very productive. I mean,
Mhm,
I doodled around in life, but I was always busy working, getting the job done. It
mhm,
wasn't my call to have kids in this life, but I loved creating stuff no matter what I was doing. And then finally I kept hearing my mom say, "Honey, you need to do art." And while I was trying to figure out what I could do, I thought, well, maybe I could get to a little hour and a half art show,
mhm.
4
Yes.
miles down the road. And I found that time goes by, I can sit there and be so peaceful. And
Mhm,
for me, I think that when you get like that, and art is a great example. If you're doing it, and like for me, I might forget to eat, and
mhm.
I'll be going on. But for me, when you're doing that, I think that in my language, that you are feeling the presence of God. There's
I
that
think
part
so
of it,
too. I
part in
think
me.
so too.
I
Yeah.
had to ask you about that because I've wondered. Because I say to
Yes.
people, they say, "Well, you're doing that," and I
Mhm.
said, "But it's showing me these parts of me I've always loved, and I never got to awaken."
Look at
You
what
know?
I have on my desk. Let me see if I can get it here.
Oh, oh,
These
but
are all
isn't it
shells
strange?
I picked up, and there's a dragonfly, and
Oh,
there's a moth, and these are all like bugs that I found on my windowsill, and I keep them there. And I have bird eggs, and you know,
I
I just
love that.
I just love nature.
Yeah, I do too. And my favorite animal is the moose.
Oh,
I,
excellent.
Here I am living in Florida. I
Uh-huh.
How do I get there? He is. This
I
is
see 'em.
BC. I found
Uh-huh.
him in the Beartooth Mountains in Montana.
Yeah.
And I had a dream about a moose that was incredible. Was a life-changing dream. He taught me how to make decisions. So I
Wow.
call something a moose decision if you don't have to
So
make a pro con list about it.
perhaps there's a children's book in there waiting to be written.
Well, I have sketched out one a couple years ago called Jeannie. My middle name's Jean.
Uh-huh.
Jeannie, Muga, which was our first dog that's passed, and the Lavender Moose. Be-
Oh, write it, write it, write it. I want to read it. That's beautiful. I
So
love it. I
uh,
want to write some children's books too. I've got one written and I've got ideas for a couple more and you know what? I think the best books for adults oftentimes are children's books. Like there's this one artist, he has what do you do with an idea? And it's like, oh, this is just beautiful. We can all learn from it. So I
yeah.
love them.
That reminds me about Einstein because, I
Mhm.
love Jean Houston. She's really helped me develop the mythic type life in thinking about being a mystic, which I finally had the courage to realize and admit that that's a large part of me. It's why I have to go be quiet a lot. But Jean Houston, when she was an 8-year old in school in New York, and the class was going to visit Albert Einstein. So they went over there, and she said this one little smart alecky kid, 8 years old, says, "Mr. Einstein, how do I get as smart as you?" And he said, "Read fairy tales."
Oh, yeah.
Read fairy tales. And then
Uh-huh.
this other kid says, "Well, how do I get smarter than you?" And he said, "Read more fairy tales." And when I was little, I still have Alice in Wonderland and Pocahontas in
Mhm.
me,
Yeah.
and a little bit of Annie Oakley,
Mhm.
and I remember when I was little looking around at some older folks and families and things. I said, I just don't ever want to let go
Mhm.
of those in me, and I think
Right.
that that's important.
I think so too. I
Do
think
you
so
have
too.
a favorite animal?
I have so many. I
Yeah,
mean, right now I'm into slugs and snails.
right.
Um, I love octopuses. They amaze me. Do you know octopuses can't even see in color? How can they change to match what they're around if they can't even see it? That
Wow.
just blows my mind,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
It is
So
amazing.
but I love rabbits. I just love
Oh,
rabbits.
I love
I love to have
rabbits too.
rabbits around, and I love birds, and, I go to sometimes I like to go to Chick-fil-A near us and have breakfast, and I take a book and I read in the parking lot while I eat. It's
Yeah,
kinda my quiet time.
yeah.
And I have this mockingbird who comes, and I throw biscuit pieces out the window and pieces of scrambled egg, and his favorite is the scrambled egg. But now he'll come and land on my side mirror and look at me and wait for me to throw the scrambled egg out. But I really have a strong connection with birds.
Yeah, yeah. We have beautiful blue cranes here, just
Mhm.
beautiful blue cranes. And we love animals too, and so does John. We watch a lot of the animal shows. I love the ones that are the Unlikely Alliance. There was one where this goat adopted a blind horse. And
Oh, yes, I've
horse,
seen things like that, yeah.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
just so beautiful. You wish people could get a little bit of it.
Check out Yorkshire Vets. I
We do. Yeah, we
You
watch.
watch Yorkshire Vet? We watch it every night. I mean, we
Yeah,
just love it, and my grandkids are into it now too, and
yeah,
it's like, oh my gosh,
yeah, yeah. Love
it's
it.
pretty cool. I
Yeah.
love it too. Well, Candace, thanks so much for being on the show. I'm just
Thank
delighted to
you.
have you, and we will put a link to your book and to your website, so anyone who's listening and wants to get in touch with Candace, you'll be able to do so.
Okay. Thank you, Toby. It's
You're
just joy.
welcome.
It's joy to be with you.
Yes, thank you. I feel the very same way.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to Fierce Conversations with Toby. Your support means the world, and I hope today's episode made a positive impact on you. To keep our conversations going, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. A 5-star rating, like, comment, or review helps tremendously in spreading our message. You can also support the show by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/fierce conversations. All members receive a downloadable gratitude journal and access to a private Facebook group. Plus, 10% of your subscription goes directly to donating my workbooks to women in prison. Finally, sharing this episode with your friends and family is a great way to amplify our mission. Fierce Conversations is created and hosted by me, Toby Dorr, with production by Number 3 Productions. The theme music, Grooving, composed by Lisa Plass, features Lisa on flute, Carolyn Parody on piano, and Tony Ventura on bass. Learn more at tobydor.com. Thanks for listening, and remember, escape your prison.